All right, well, the room just got a whole lot bigger. That means my presentation is way more in demand than Dave's, so I'm ready to get this thing kicked off. Give him a hard time. Yeah, so excited to be here. My name is Blake Daly. I'm going to talk to you guys about short-term rentals and how to find, buy, and profitably operate them at scale. And a little bit about me. Like I said, active duty in the Air Force. I actually put on for captain in like 24 days now, so it's coming up. And then scale my short-term rental business to 85 listings in 2 different states. We had 30 employees and did $3 million in revenue in the previous 12 months. I just sold that business to continue scaling in the space, buy more boutique hotels and unique short-term rentals. And I'm through the presentation today. I'm gonna show you guys how I got started in short-term rentals. Got the first one using my VA loan, and then scaled to this kind of like the mid-scale. I had 8 short-term rentals. With my net cash flow surpassed my W-2 income. I was like, man, I gotta go bigger. And then built a $20 million portfolio of all these boutique hotels and apartment complex too. And how this business is so scalable, like because of the increased revenue in the asset class, you can afford to outsource and build your team and be able to manage an organization, build a business so that you're not the one doing all the work. So I love it for that. And just for a show of hands, I know we were talking right here. Who has short-term rentals right now? Okay, a few. We'll get some more hands up at the end of this. I'm changing slides on the wrong computer. There we go. Background. So what we're going to get into today is kind of like, I want to start with the end in mind, with the goal of what we're trying to work towards. I think everybody in this room, for the most part, in a different way maybe, and then how I got started, the benefits of short-term rentals, and then scaling that to the next level with boutique hotels and a bigger operation. So I want you guys to picture this. You're making 6 figures a month or whatever that financial goal of yours might be. You're only working a few hours a week. You got a team of rock stars who are capable and efficient, knocking everything out. You're not the one doing everything. And you have a business that you're proud of that affords you flexibility. You can take time off, you can take a weekend off or a week off. And that's what we're all kind of working towards. And how to get there, like that's the question. I think short-term rentals may be the best, or at least the fastest way to get there. Like for one, the obvious is the higher cash flow. So like normal short-term rental returns are 2 to 3 or even more than that on the cash flow than long-term rentals. And then you've got some crazy tax benefits. Like you can surpass the real estate professional status with they call it the STR loophole, or section 469 of the tax code, which allows you to write off your non-passive losses, which is like your earned income from your W-2 job. So I got a big tax refund check this year because of codes like that, and utilizing the loopholes with all the depreciation and ways we're able to write off our taxes was with having an active short-term rental business, active. And they're also easier to maintain. So you have cleaners that go in every couple of days to check up on the place, keep it nice, and catch little things before they turn into big things. Like there's been multiple times that we've had little leaks that have, avoided being turned into big water damage or something that we can catch and take care of before it turns into a bigger deal. And then also you have increased flexibility. So you select the rates and the dates that you rent. You can go stay at your property when you're on vacation, and you also have more power to drive higher revenue by being a good operator. So you're not confined to the rental rates in your market like you are with long-term rentals. So if you've got a 3-bed, 2-bath house in a neighborhood, it's gonna rent the same as the other 3-bed, 2-bath houses in that same neighborhood. But 2 short-term rental houses in that neighborhood might have drastically different income based on how they're designed, based on how they're set up, based on how you run them as the operator. So you have a lot more power to get even greater returns than you normally would. So how I got started with short-term STRs. So this is my first house, and this was like the little guest unit right here that we rented out on Airbnb and lived in the main house. So it was a VA loan house hack. Purchased it for $207,500 and put $2,500 into furnishing. If that seems cheap, it was because we had just commissioned. I was a brand new second lieutenant, didn't really have the money to go deck this place out, but we made it work. My wife is very crafty, and furnished a pretty good place, but had zero experience. But I had a really good feeling that this would work because we would stay like in a place like this, like a basement apartment or a mother-in-law suite or something like that when we were in college, because we were looking for an affordable, nice place to stay. So I knew like at the 80 to 100 bucks a night at, maybe 75 or 80% occupancy, we could do pretty well. And it ended up actually cash flowing. We made like 100 bucks per month in net cash flow after like even utilities and Wi-Fi. So I was like, man, short-term rentals are pretty cool. Like this is a better house hack than I imagined. And around this same time, my wife was getting her doctorate. I was obviously in the Air Force, but was doing direct-to-seller marketing and doing handwritten letters to sellers. And my wife would put the stamps and write the addresses, and then I would write sign them and send them out. And we started marketing for more deals and kind of built up with doing off-market deals, with the negotiation, with the marketing, with going into sellers' living rooms and negotiating deals. And through this first year, like our first 3 months in Panama City, we got our first 3 deals. And in that first year, we had 11 rentals. 8 of them were short-term rentals, and had surpassed my W-2 income with the cash flow, like the net cash flow after all that. But that's where we got in the first year, but I kind of want to back up to this point of finding this deal and where it led. So we found this strategy of finding our niche with these houses and the guest houses. And it was a house with an extra unit, it could have been an ADU or a mother-in-law suite, a basement apartment, a carriage house, like whatever we could turn into extra rentable space and create an extra rentable unit. So by doing this, we're able to get two houses or 2 units for the price of one, because a lot of these were mislisted MLS deals that the agent really didn't capture the value on, or even mention that this other unit. Like I just flipped through photos, that's how we found the first one, see the extra kitchen or the extra entryway. Like, hey, I think we're onto something here. We can turn this into another unit. And then we would create super listings out of them. So we'd have the 2 houses, we'd have like the little carriage house or ADU or whatever it was in the main house. So we'd rent each of those out individually. And we'd also have a 3rd listing for both of those together for larger groups and families that would come stay. So we're really able to manipulate our rates and our ADRs to drive our occupancy and our revenue. And just with 8 of these houses and a couple long-term rentals, that's how we were able to scale so fast. Like we just did all burrs and took all the cash flow into buying more houses and surpassed the W-2 income. So then kind of had a decision to make. I scaled really fast and turned these 8 houses into then an 8-unit boutique hotel. But how we got there was, I surpassed the W-2 income and I was like, man, we got to go bigger. That was like my 5-year goal, and I did it in 1. Like what you can do with short-term rentals can be pretty crazy. So I had a little stint of syndicating multifamily, syndicated a 66-unit apartment complex. And that was right before like multifamily the returns got really compressed, the cap rate started compressing, and just the juice wasn't worth the squeeze anymore. But through that process, learned how to underwrite commercial real estate, learned how to negotiate with brokers, just learned the commercial real estate space. And I had known short-term rentals, like we had these 8 listings, did the design ourselves, did the self-management, even started out with cleaning ourselves, like my wife and I. So like knew short-term rentals really well and knew commercial real estate really well. Or I thought at the time, I was like, I can do this. I was green behind the ears, but pressed on that and found a 8-unit that I was like, you know what, you could either turn this to like this boutique kind of hotel, hybrid Airbnb property, and I had 8 units already, so I was pretty confident in what the demand on the guest side would be and how we could handle that. But with this, they'd all be on one site. Like I'd have one laundry room where I could do all the linens there. I could have all the supplies on one site, all the cleaners go to one site. It was actually easier to run just this building than it was the 8 short-term rentals that were all in different areas. So the scalability by getting bigger allowed me to better manage the whole portfolio. Then I could hire some more admin staff. I could hire VAs to do all of our guest messaging. So jumping up to do 8 units all at once rather than all these different houses really benefited. So from there, I saw the numbers on the boutique hotel, the first one in Fort Walton Beach. That's the one I just showed. And I was sold on it. I was like, this is where I need to be, not instead of multifamily where the returns are tight. So I started telling everybody what I was looking for. I was like, hey, I just bought this 8 unit. if you've got any other deals, let me know. And I hosted a meetup in Panama City Beach at the time, and the broker gave me one of these that was right across from the beach, and started underwriting deals, started talking to brokers, and we had gotten, my partner and I, 3 more deals that summer in 2021, and finally the fourth one here at the bottom right, or I guess your bottom left. So we closed 5 hotels in 13 months, 4 I owned with my partner and 1 that I owned just myself. And this allowed us to really go fast, build out our team, and it didn't take all the management to, it didn't put it on me. So by going faster, we were able to scale and have a more efficient portfolio. And talking about scaling, so I want to talk about the systems, the automations, and the outsourcing. And I think I was able to scale so fast because of the size of the deals allowed us to raise money similar to apartment investing. So we could have acquisition fees, we could raise all the reserves, and then split in our investors on the equity and treat it like a more professional raise rather than having to use all my own money to do this. And we could also raise for the repairs and split that with them. And the properties produced enough revenue for us to be able to use all the technology and the software that we needed to run it really efficiently. And then the most important part, we could hire the team to manage the properties so that we could manage the managers and not do the work ourselves. So I think like a lot of times in short-term rentals, the owners, when they're scaling or get to a point where they can't do it all themselves, are just running around with their heads cut off, and then they get out of this space because like short-term rentals is too much work, it's a job, but they don't treat it like scale and like a business and put the layers in between them and the things that need to be done, and just they're like the center for all the decisions that need to be made, and it feels overwhelming. And I've definitely experienced moments of that, and I was like, all right, let's go buy another boutique hotel so we can hire somebody else and have the revenue we need. And this is kind of how I've approached hiring out the different levels and getting up to each new level of scale. So at the very bottom is where like you have everything above you and you're like the center of all that. But by systematically scaling yourself out, at the very bottom you can hire your base level positions, your e-concierge as we call them, in our VA. So e-concierge members do all of our guest messaging, they handle all the resolutions. Like when people ask questions, that's who they go to. So like that's who messages all of our guests. When we started buying the hotels, I was like, I've been doing this for long enough. Like I don't want to be the one to message any guests. So I built with the end in mind and built out the team. It allows you to start like at a base level where you have this admin level and base level support to take care of the stuff you don't want to do. And then each step you kind of elevate and have that under the other function to manage and lead and oversee rather than do. In this middle level, then you can start hiring your property manager, your property level staff that then starts to filter out the different things that would come to you, and again takes you out of it. And then you just have to like do the management positions, and then from there you go up, and then you hire out a guest experience manager, a revenue manager, and then a director of operations, and then you're kind of like at the tip of that triangle, and you're not the one doing everything yourself. So, wanted to do a case study of one of our hotels. This is the very first one. So, we purchased this for $357,000. This was in February of 2021. And if that looks low for 8 units, it was, because this had like yellow vinyl siding and like blue brick and blue trim and lawnmowers and bikes and overgrown grass and trees. Like it was ugly. When I pulled up, I was like, did we waste our time driving here? I went with my wife and she was taking the pictures of it, and it was an ugly duckling. And we planned to invest $400,000, but it ended up investing, I think it was just over $700,000. So the repair budget almost doubled, and this was by far the biggest it was really like a redevelopment with everything we had to do to it, and over a 50% renovation. We actually took down this whole front wall, rebuilt it, refamed it, new windows, electrical, plumbing, roof, water heaters, everything. We even tore up the floor and repoured it. So it was a really big investment. So we're all in for $1.15 million, and then we went to refinance. Thankfully, we bought early enough that real estate value just kept going up, because I was stressing for a long time. But it appraised for $1.6 million, so we refinanced for 70% of that for $1.05 million and paid back all our investors. I raised debt investors on this one, so they had promissory notes on the property. It is in between like 9 and 11% interest, depending on how the negotiation was with the certain investors. So they all got paid back at the end of this deal, and paid my money back that I had in, other than $100,000. So it wasn't a perfect burr. Left $100,000 of my money into it. And then the cash flow analysis in March was net cash flow of $11,000. Recovered some of the losses from the slow season because Florida. This is in Fort Walton Beach, Florida. It's kind of feast or famine. You make like 70% of your income in 3 months of the year, June, July, and August. So the slow season's really slow. But the rest of the, this summer, the next 4 or 5 months, it'll cash flow well. So positive cash flow outlook there. And that's roughly how the other ones looked as well. All right. So finding these deals in the first place. So I mentioned earlier with the house and the guest house properties is mislisted MLS deals. Like when a real estate agent gets a listing, they might be new, they might just not know real estate that well or not look at it from an investor's perspective. Because when I see another unit, I see money, A homeowner might see that extra unit like, oh, the maintenance or, how do we take care of it? So they completely miss it and just have no mention of, the extra unit or the value that might be there. But sometimes there's little keys that you can pull. So like if you go into the MLS or if you go on Zillow or Realtor, you can use a keyword search and you can put in there ADU, or you can put apartment, or you can put mother-in-law suite or mother-in-law or just suite or guest house or whatever that looks like. And you can screen out deals that just have those keywords, and you can look at them like that. And you can see what I mean. If you start to look at deals like this, there's really no draw or appeal to the extra value, that extra unit a lot of times. So by finding that, you can get the 2 listings for one price like I was talking about. Also, undervalued multifamily you can convert to short-term rentals. So that 8 unit I bought in Fort Walton Beach was zoned for hotel motel use, but had multifamily. But was set up for multifamily. So then I just converted it back to short-term rental, and other deals depending on your regulations for the area. If you buy a 4-plex, you could use a residential loan on it and get really good financing terms, and then turn it into 4 short-term rental units. That cash flow a lot higher. Also, similar commercial property that can be converted. So something that might have the use to be short-term rental. It could be an office space in a downtown area that you turn into loft apartments, short-term rentals. It could be, a tiny home or something like that. These are the same thing. I just realized that. That should be hotels and motels is the other one that you can convert into, boutique hotels or these hybrid Airbnb properties that you can drive the value on, because a lot of them have mom and pop owners. They're owner operated, they're not online. So there's a lot of operational efficiency to add to these properties and drive up the NOI, which is how you value your commercial properties. And also create your own. So if you buy land, you can put tiny homes on them. You can, cabin communities, and just turning something, it could be a house, a big Victorian house that you turn into a bed and breakfast, or like 7, 8 short-term rentals all in one house. So what I love about this space is there's a lot of creativity to create your own or additional revenue streams with short-term rentals. So deal sources, where do you find the deals in the first place? So I think number one is always going to be brokers and agents that know your market, that are competent, that are good at real estate, that they're the ones that wouldn't mislist a deal that had extra value, because agents and brokers, their job is to connect with sellers and to market and send mailers and pick up the phone and have the relationships with the seller so that when they're ready to sell, they list with that broker and then they list it. So if you can get to that broker when those transactions start taking place, be top of mind, do transactions with them, make relationships with them, you can get a lot of deals first. Also, Crexi and LoopNet, so these are the Zillow for commercial real estate, and I hear all the time that LoopNet is the place that deals go to die. But I actually found 2 of my boutique hotels. Yeah, you guys have heard that. I found 2 of my boutique hotels on LoopNet, and one of them was just the outline of the property appraisers, looking down outline of the property, and that was the only picture. There's no market of it. It's here's the number of units, here's the outline of the property itself. I'm like, man, I know this. It's right across from the beach, 17 short-term rental zoned units. I was like, this thing would crush. It was just mislisted, so Commercial agents will even do the same thing. So if you go to these different places and look and find ways to add value to a deal, or think, with the investor mindset of, all right, here's what's there currently, but what could I turn it into? You can find deals that way. Also, the MLS, using your filters and keyword searches. Direct-to-seller marketing is a big one. That's how we found a couple of our deals, and how I found a lot of my deals early on, handwriting the letters and putting the stamps on them, just throwing them in the mailbox. My mailman was probably like, why aren't they just taking these to the post office? But in this case, you become the broker and create the relationships with the seller, and then you are who they call and who they think of when they're ready to sell, and get deals before they ever go on market. You can get a better price, negotiate directly with them, maybe get seller financing. Like 3 of our boutique hotels had seller financing. It's a great way to get in for lower down, lower interest rates than today, and just more flexible. These deals are often really hard to finance, which we'll talk about next. And then also tell everyone what you're looking for. Like after I found the first one, I hosted a meetup in Panama City Beach that normally had 40 to 45 people there, a lot of agents and brokers and investors. And I would sit up in a room just like this, like, hey, if you guys find any deals just like this, looking to buy, I have investors, can make a smooth closing, whatever, whatever the pitch was at the time. And that next week got sent a deal and closed on it a few months later. So if you don't tell people what you're looking for, how are they going to know what to bring you? And you'll be surprised, when you put it out there and just tell people what you're looking for, what comes back to you. Oh my gosh. Financing. So there's 2 pieces to this. You got the debt and the equity side that makes up your capital stack of how you're going to fund the deal. And on the debt side, you have a couple different options, but I will preface this with, especially in the boutique hotel space, residential short-term rentals are a little bit different. Both commercial and boutique hotels, they can be really hard to finance because a lot of them are mom and pop operated. They are not really run very efficiently. Some of them don't have financials. Like one of the P&Ls I got was like a grid paper and pen with whiteout over certain numbers. And I was like, there's not a chance that this is accurate. So the due diligence items you get from a lot of these deals make it really tough to get financing. So I think the last piece here that's not a bullet point is just like to pick up the phone. But working on where they are, DSCR loans, they're loans that are based on the cash flow of the property and the performance and your pro forma even of that property, and don't look at you, and they're not lending on like your personal balance sheet. They lend on the property, which is great when you're getting short-term rentals. Also local and regional banks and credit unions. So probably 6 or 7 of the deals I did in Panama City were with the same credit union, worked with the same banker every time. By deal like 4, 5, and 6, it was just like, send him in the package. I knew everything he needed. Johnny probably knows who I'm talking about. Yep, David Powell. Yep, you just send in everything you need. You got a relationship with the broker. It becomes, much easier to do business. And you can kind of push those deals that might not, you probably couldn't go to Bank of America and get this closed in 30 days, or if at all. But you've got that relationship with the banker. They know you do business. They know you're an investor that, runs your business well and does good deals, and get more pushed through that way. Also, the SBA loan for the boutique hotels, like they are businesses. They have 2 different products, the 504 and 7A. Yep, I had to think about them. But with these, there are a lot more hoops to jump through. They're much more admin intensive. They can take 90, 120 plus days to close sometimes. But they have really good products where they can be loan to cost, where they might lend 70, 75, 80% of the total project cost, including the purchase price and the repairs, meaning you have to bring less out of pocket, have to raise less money, can have a better return on investment, but just be ready for the hoops to jump through. But no, it's an option. Also, hard money. So these 2, hard money and institutional bridge loans or institutional hard money loans are very similar, but these are going to be short-term, higher rate debt that might be 12 months. Maybe you have a point or 2 to extend another 6 or 12 months. But it's short-term in nature, high interest rate. Like today, you're probably looking 10% minimum, probably more like 11, 12, 13% and some fees on this kind of money. But when there's no other way to get a deal, right? When the SBA is taking 90 days or 120 days, when a local bank, you don't have any relationships, like you have to do one of these, gets the deals done, just make sure to get through the project, renovate it, stabilize it, and then refinance to one of these better options. And then my favorite, seller financing. So 3 out of the 5 of our boutique hotels were seller finance, which means you basically skip, the other 5 of these. And it's just on that relationship with the seller. So you don't need to, provide financials because they already know what the property's doing. So it's really on your reputation as the buyer with that seller, and really on your relationship with them. If you convince them like, hey, I'm a good buyer, we're gonna set funds in escrow maybe, and make sure that they are comfortable with carrying that loan for you. But some of the most flexible, easy financing that we've got in between like 10 and 15% down, with as low as like 4 to 5 and 6% interest rates, interest only for up to 5 years. So we have like long-term fixed rate debt in a sense that seller financed, makes it very flexible for us to do the deal. And then the equity piece. So this is like the money that you yourself bring to the deal or that you raise from investors. And this can be friends or family. This can be, people connections that you went to college with, maybe work in a tech company and other high-earning tech employees that want to invest in your deal based on like your mutual connection. I think a lot of us in this room, being military members, being veterans, have a lot of people that we immediately resonate with, that we can make connections with. And like, I think when you look at it through the lens of you're providing an opportunity rather than asking for money, makes it much easier for you to get people to trust in you and want to, view it as an opportunity and not like you trying to get in their pockets and take some money. But you guys are making money together, right? You're mutually invested in the deal. You just got to look at it that way. Building an email list with lead magnets. So David talked about this a little bit last time, but if you look at David's Instagram profile or my Instagram profile, thank you for that. I'm just kidding. You'll see like the link in our profile will have like free things on there that's just like value to our audience, like people that know, like, and trust us and resonate with whatever we might say on social media, then get funneled there, and then we can continue to provide value to them in exchange for their email. So they're not paying anything, but they're giving up their email, maybe their phone number. Then you're building your list so that once you have an opportunity, it's kind of like the chicken and the egg. You want to build it and they will come, but you build that list so then you can share the opportunity when you have it. And then like I mentioned, with finding deals, finding money is the same way. Let everyone know what you're looking for, and you'll be surprised, who might turn out that has cash that they need to invest. Like somebody just sold their business. So if you guys got deals, that have money that want to invest with you. So the operations piece of short-term rentals. So this stuff is a little bit more dense, as you can imagine. This is the meat and potatoes of short-term rentals. Like getting the deal sometimes seems like the hard part, and then you actually get the deal. You're like, all right, this is the hard part. I think one of the most important pieces, especially with multiple units on the portfolio of our scale, is the property management system, or the PMS. I'll get out of the way so you guys can take pictures. These are things like HostAway or Guesty or Hostfully. There's like 1 million PMSs, but those are like the top 3 or 5. And these have all the features that you need to like be the one place for the most part that you log into to manage everything. So that'll be your channel manager, your unified inbox for your messaging and your automations, your unified calendar, your task management. You even have an integrated direct booking platform. So this is kind of like your one-stop shop that then everything else will connect to. So again, you log into the one place to manage everything. A dynamic pricing tool is really important. Like we were just talking before this about our super listings, or about my super listings, trying to convince him to do them with this duplex, is you have so many ways to drive revenue with short-term rentals, and dynamic pricing, even if you set it and forget it and just leave it alone, will probably do an easy 20% top line addition to your revenue. If you think about it, that's huge. Like if you're making 100 grand a year, next year you'd make 120 grand. So that extra 20% is big. And then the more you learn your market and analyze the market reports that these features, that these tools have built in as features, you can drive your revenue even more. Like I just did a analysis of AirDNA is one of the places you can pull data from in the short-term rental space. And it'll show the best listings in every market. And my houses are up there, and I looked at the revenue that they are making, the best top 10, and mine was like 50% over others in that top 10. I was like, damn, that's, these are the top 10 and making so much more. It's because of dynamic pricing and how I run my revenue management. There's also AI messaging, so it'll take even more off your plate. At scale, we have a full e-concierge team, so we don't use that necessarily, but something with a handful of listings you can kind of build up with and take some work off you. Task management, we heard about Asana earlier today. Breezeway is another one. Just as you can imagine, there's a lot of things going on, a lot of turns. When you have a lot of units, it can be a lot of repairs, so that's one way to keep everything locked up. Smart locks, so we have Wi-Fi enabled Bluetooth smart locks that whenever a guest books with us, they'll get a code sent to them on their phone and through whatever booking platform they checked in at. So even with our hotels, they don't go to a front office, they don't have to check in with everybody, they go right to their room and have their code and can get in. It's a contactless experience. Like, other than last time when I checked in Dallas, I probably haven't been to a hotel front desk in like 3 years. And most guests just want to check in. Noise aware and monitoring device. So if you have a lot of single family homes like I do, in my one market in Panama City, I've got noise devices in each property because I don't want to disturb my neighborhood, I don't want to disturb my neighbors. So that'll help you kind of better manage and make sure that the guests that are staying in your property aren't creating headaches for you and for your team. Captive Wi-Fi is a big one. Maybe one of the biggest ones on here, other than, yeah, just one of the biggest ones, because it allows you to build your email list with, like when somebody books with you with Airbnb, you don't get their email. And just like building up your email list for your investors, you want to do the same with your guests, because then you can retarget them and provide marketing to them to get them to come stay again and turn them into your customer instead of Airbnbs or VRBOs or whoever it might be, and make relationships with the people that stay in your properties. And so this will be like, just like when you go to an airport and you pull up the Wi-Fi and you have to put in your name, maybe your zip code to get on the Wi-Fi. It's the same thing here. They'll put in their name and their email, and then that'll all get captured, and it's for everybody that stays at the property, not just the person that books. So whoever gets on the Wi-Fi at the property will have to log in through that. So it allows you to build a massive email list. I think ours, when I left, right before I sold my business, was like 5,000 people that we have their contact information and can send them promotions. Like, hey, 20% off in April, which is our shoulder season, and then get our occupancy up when every other host who's not doing this doesn't have a way to reach out to their guests and drive some more bookings. And then digital guidebook, it allows you to kind of create ways to help guests with different things. Like, it could be recommendations for your local area, how to use appliances, what to do for check-in and check-out. So kind of all about your property too, if you've got a more unique property where you've got to have instructions on, I don't know, how to open the hot tub gate or something like that. And then that'll go out in your automated messages. And what it really serves to do is like to answer questions in your guest's mind before they're ever asked, and helps just provide a better experience for them and more streamlined for you. Operations continued, again, it's a bulky one. Guest communication. I think this is what hangs up a lot of hosts, and this is where they spend most of their time, because they don't think of ways to systematize it and build in processes so that they're not the ones answering everything, or that when something is answered, they're not like, pulled into that from whatever else they're doing, kind of like interrupting their day. So automated messages are really big for this, and it's kind of like the baseline of it. And that'll be messages for your check-in and for your check-out, and even your check-up, like a day after they checked in, if it's a multi-day stay, like, hey, how's everything going? Is there anything we can do for you? And again, to provide you an opportunity to fix issues or answer questions before they're ever asked or before it turns into something bigger, so that you can get that good review, you can get them coming back, you can get more guests, because the reviews will drive future bookings for you as well on the platforms. And then you can send review requests. Say, hey, if you enjoyed your stay, please leave us a 5-star review. Like, here's Airbnb's kind of review layout. Like, 5 stars is great, 4 stars is 1 star is like a kick in the balls. That's like the worst thing ever. And then you can create message templates based on FAQs for quick responses. And what that'll look like is, if you get a recurring question over and over again, like, create an FAQ for you or for your e-concierge team to better handle that. So like, if you keep getting questions about, how to turn on the dishwasher, you can create that, and it takes less time ongoing, and even allows a guest to answer that. You can put in your guidebook and answers it for them. Also, like, create policies for refunds, because that'll be something that, if a guest cancels last minute, if they check in, like, inevitably, if you get in short-term rentals, you will have a cleaning issue, or somebody comes in your place and they're like, I'm not checking in, I'm going to a hotel. You gotta have a policy for that, so it's not, doesn't ruin everything in your business for this one thing. Use the digital guidebook to provide recommendations. That could be your local area, how to use the house the best, whatever it is. And then have someone available in that area to dispatch, so it's not you. Again, build in systems, build in layers that takes you out of doing all this stuff. In case of a lockout, like the batteries in your smart lock dies, or they swear up and down it doesn't work, but they just don't know the numbers to push. Or whatever other emergency it could be. And that could be a cleaner, that could be a handyman that you have in the area, just somebody to send out so that it's not always you having to go and do these things and treating it more like a business and not, taking your time away from everything. Also, we talked about the smart locks, and the ones that we use are the ones that have a keyhole. So we actually have a lock box with the key in it, so that if that battery dies, it's part of us building in redundancy to the business. So if there's a lockout, the guest can't use the smart lock or the batteries die or whatever, we can give them the code to the lock box to get the physical key, then to using the lock, and then they'll just put that back when they get in. So no matter what happens with that lock, they can get in, so we're not having to send people out, spend labor cost, or go yourself as the host if you're the do-it-yourselfer. Also, extra linens and supplies on site. And again, it's that same thing in mind. So we'll have a guest closet at all of our boutique hotels, and even in our houses as well, that are key code accessed, that has things like extra shampoo, extra conditioner, extra towels and linens, stuff like that. So that if during their stay the guest runs out, or whatever that case might be, you can give them the code to go get their own. And then it's not you having to go, hey, here's your towels and linens. They can take care of it themselves. And it makes it much easier for them. They can get it like that, rather than waiting on you or your cleaner, whoever, to come out. And part of it, you not doing everything yourself. You could hire a co-host, or just virtual assistants. And that's what we did in our business to handle all that different admin demand. So we didn't have to go do everything. Automated messages, we talk about dispatching people, digital guidebooks. So that's your operations. And the last piece about operations, I think this is the biggest moneymaker here, is the revenue management. We talked about dynamic pricing software, and I think the one we use, Price Labs, it's like $9 per month. And I'll literally make that, or if you guys will implement it, we'll make that $9 back in like 1/10 of a reservation increase. So definitely use it. And also, when you think about your revenue management, you need to think on like a year-long calendar scale, because you want to have enough availability to show up in more searches, because the more searches you show up in, the more clicks you'll get on, the more bookings, the more revenue you'll make. So you want to have a longer booking window, but the risk is that all your dates without stuff like this are flat pricing, and it could be weekdays versus weekends, or the middle of May compared to July 4th weekend. So look ahead to the dates and the holidays and the events that you have coming to your area. Like for us in Florida, it's Gulf Coast Jam. For a market like Tahoe, where we're in, they have big events around Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's at the ski village right across from us. So those are big events where a lot of guests come to our market. So we'll increase our prices for those because there's increased demand, and you can capture those higher rates. And also, when you increase for higher rates, there's also a time to decrease for lower demand dates and unbooked days, especially incrementally as they get closer. So if I'm looking out today on April 21st, I'm usually look out to a 30-day window. So on May 21st, I might not discount that, but if it gets to a week out from that reservation, even starting at 2 weeks, even want to start to discount that incrementally as that day gets closer, up to like your minimum price that you take in your market. That's because once that day goes by in the hospitality space, you're never getting it back, and that's revenue that's lost forever. So I'd rather take a booking at $150 than hold out for $200 and never get a booking, especially if your lowest price you take is $100. You know what I mean? So it just varies based on the seasonality. But the important thing is once the day goes by unbooked, it's gone forever. And how to find that, like how far you should actually go, is your contribution margin. And I want to explain the whole thing, but it's basically your sales revenue minus your variable expense, because your fixed costs are fixed. They're constant. Like you're paying your mortgage, you're paying your insurance, no matter what. So as long as you're covering your variable costs for the cost of a reservation, you're chipping away at your fixed cost and increasing your bottom line. So just a thing there if you guys are looking to, if you're in short-term rentals. And another big piece that we do, especially in the low season to drive our revenue, is we use length of stay discounts rather than discounting those days. And what that'll look like is like a 3 or a 4-day discount, and a lot of these will happen like over a weekend. So your typical high demand dates are Friday and Saturday, which is your weekend dates in almost every market, in the US at least. So most people stay, check in Friday and check out Saturday, but we use a 3 or a 4-day discount and try to incentivize people to either check in Thursday or check out Monday. And we use 3 and 4-day discounts even at the same time sometimes. So if they stay Thursday to Monday, they get a bigger discount. So those length of stays could be something like 10, 15, 20, even 25% for staying a longer length of stay, because likely, especially if you're in the low season, that other day or those other 2 days might have gone by unbooked. So whatever you can capture for that additional day is added revenue to your pocket. And I've got a revenue management, my tips and tricks book here if anybody's in short-term rentals. Free resource, lead magnet like we talked about, so if you guys want that. It's the wrong one. That's what happens when I got 2 computers. I need to shut this one. So any questions? I did pretty good on time. What do we got? Yes. So when I buy houses, absolutely. But when we buy boutique hotels, typically no, because they're zoned for, they're zoned hotel and motel use. So they're, intended for nightly use, just like the Marriott or Hilton in that market would be. So that would be like a zoning change for that local market, which is a much bigger change than, than property use regulation. So like in Lake Tahoe, we saw, for example, that they had regulation at the end of 2021 that took off like 1,000 listings in that market, but we were unaffected because we're commercial property intended for that use. And it actually benefited us a lot because it was all the demand of Lake Tahoe. Now there's 1,000 less, houses that people can go stay in. So our hotels around the state line area did really well. So that's kind of like something when I look at a new market, I'm like, if they have regulation, I want to go look for some boutique hotels there because I've kind of seen how it plays out and you do a little bit better. But if you're buying houses, yeah, definitely kind of protect your downside with underwriting for a long-term rental to make sure it would pencil. All right, well, I guess I got to start looking at Fort Worth now. It's a good tip for me. Any other questions? Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so different markets, different ways. I mean, like the easiest way is just like Google, your market, short-term rental regulations, and dig into like the governance of whatever the area is, whatever they've published, their property use codes, and you can look at the zoning of your property. They'll have like what it's zoned as and its property use code, and you can look both of those up in the local regulations. Also call City Hall and say, hey, what's going on with short-term rental? Like when we were talking about this Tahoe legislation, like I wanted to understand how that was going to affect us or if it was going to, and that's when I learned like, man, we're actually doing really well. So Google searches to really get to like the right documents on the city's website, and they're kind of internally how they treat that, and then even calling City Hall just to talk to somebody or going up there to see what, maybe there's like gray area in one of those laws and I want interpretation, because some of them make you register, but then they do nothing about it. So sometimes you just don't register because they don't even do anything about it. Just depends on the market. Any other questions?
All right, let's give it up.
All right. Thank you guys. Thank you.